To the Wednesday, January 21st, 2026 regular council meeting. Before we continue, council has motions stemming from topics that were discussed during our closed meeting session. Councillor Hyde.
I move the council appoint Shannon Kelly to the Strathmore Municipal Library Board for a term of 3 years ending October 31st, 2028. And that council appoint Emily Rockford to the Strathmore Municipal Library Board for a term of 3 years ending October 31st, 2028. And that council appoint Duncan McIsaac to the Strathmore Municipal Policing Committee for a term of 3 years ending October 31st, 2028. And that council appoint Sean Duthie to the Family and Community Support Services Advisory Board for a term of 2 years ending October 31st, 2027. And that council direct administration to advertise current board and committee vacancies and begin applications to a future council, and bring applications to a future council meeting for consideration.
Thank you for the motion. Is there discussion? Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Just a general thanks. Thank you to all the people who put their name forward and our volunteers. One of the things that makes this town so great is the number of volunteers willing to serve on these boards and committees. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments before I call the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council authorize an operating budget amendment in the amount of $50,000 to come from the Financial Stabilization Reserve to support items discussed in closed meeting item 3.4, Economic Development Opportunity, Advice from Officials, ATIA, Section 29, subsection 1A.
Thank you for the motion. Any discussion on that? Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Just a very general comment. This is an economic development opportunity, and so it's going to be a very good thing.
Thank you very much. This time I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. And we're looking for one more motion from the in-camera session. Awkward pause. Councillor Brown.
Yes, I'd like to move that council adopt the recommendation for closed meeting item 3.5 Township 240 project as presented in the confidential administrative report and as discussed in camera, and that the details of the discussion remain confidential pursuant to S28(1)A and 29(1)A of the Access of Information Act.
Thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is also carried. We have no public hearing tonight. Item 5, public comments. I don't believe we have any tonight. Jonathan, I don't need to necessarily read the blurb. Thank you very much. So no public comments tonight, and there's no one present who would like to speak? No? Okay. We have no delegations tonight, and that brings us to item 7, consent agenda. Are there any items that are presented in the consent agenda list that council would like removed and dealt with individually? Councillor Brown?
Yes, I would like item 9.4, the 2026 FCSS Advisory Board Family and Community Support Services Grant Program removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you. And then I'm looking for a motion to adopt the recommendations for the items to go on consent agenda, excluding 9.4. Deputy Mayor Wiley.
I move that council adopt the recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion. 8.1, regular council from December 10th. 11.2.1, FCSS board meeting minutes, April 8th. 11.2.2, FCSS board meeting minutes, December 11th. 11.2.3, FCSS board meeting minutes from January 7th. 12.1, Town of Strathmore letter of collaboration for the ASB Summer AGD Tour 2026, 12.2 Where Red Canada Day Proclamation Request, and 12.3 Village of Hazard Organizational Meeting Letter.
Thank you for that motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. So we now move to item 9, business, 9.1 naturalized areas boardwalk. Is that the correct one? I'm a little, yes. Mr. Dugdale, you're coming to present. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'll be presenting an overview of information arising from Council's September 17th, 2025 direction regarding the feasibility of constructing a sustainable pathway in the wetland area south of Grace Park. The initiative does align with several goals for community well-being development as well as environmental stewardship. While the project does not directly contribute to economic or financial sustainability at this stage, it is a contributor to parks and pathways and the environment, which of course are important to the community's overall health and quality of life. In terms of the project's considerations, if we move forward with this, it must follow all environmental regulations, including approvals from Alberta Environment and protected areas before going ahead. Both desktop and on-site environmental studies would be needed to ensure protection of local wildlife and sensitive areas. This would be a new project requiring staff resources and capital expenditures. If council doesn't proceed, there's no impact. Staff time would be needed to deliver the project, but it's anticipated it can be managed with help from consultants and within current workloads, which I'll speak to. Maintenance needs will be needed if the project proceeds and are expected to be within current operations department facilities, or capabilities rather. And funding sources will need to be determined if we move forward, whether from reserves, borrowing, or grants. Council's direction will guide this decision. So just as background, on September 17th, 2025, there was a motion passed to assess the feasibility of a sustainable pathway, including necessary ecological assessments and compliance with Parks and Pathways Bylaw 1407. 2, to provide preliminary cost estimates for these assessments, studies, construction, maintenance, and funding sources. 3rd, outline a community engagement plan. And 4thly, develop a project timeline for investigation of potential construction phases. So key issues for consideration. Again, there is environmentally sensitive areas here found south of Grace Park and next to Lambert Village. It's a key for stormwater management for the town. And development next to this area requires AEPA approval, and all permitted disturbances must be compensated to support future environmental enhancements. The parcel currently is owned by West Strathmore Developments, who's the developer of West Creek, and it'll be intended to be transferred to the town as part of the West Creek ASP development tentatively in 2026 or 2027. Consent from that owner will be required, or formal transfer will be needed before any work would begin. In terms of the pathway itself, a minimum 340-meter pathway would be needed to connect Park Lane Way to the WID Canal area. Detailed routing could be discussed with the council and through public consultation. Asphalt pathway is recommended as the most economical and durable material, though alternatives can be considered. Overall, the project cost would be about $210,000. Some of the estimates of the components would be the environmental assessments around $20,000, AEPA applications about $30,000, public consultation up to $10,000, the actual pathway construction about $150,000. Any additional improvements that would be added would be to be determined, of course. In terms of engagement itself, that could include an online survey for public input on routing, materials, and project support. Further engagement could be considered, again, with associated costs. In terms of the timeline, it would likely take at least 18 months to be delivered. Again, beginning with those environmental assessments, followed by route determination, public engagement, budgeting approvals, and tendering and construction. Now, the earliest possible completion would be 2027, depending on several factors. The outcome of the project is at council discretion, and our recommendation tonight is simply to accept this report as information. And I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions from council? Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. So looking at the image that we have here, so it's 340 meters. It joins up to that bridge that crosses over just at Center Street, I believe, right? And, or sorry, Centennial. And it comes up to Park Lane. Is there, I mean, why did we stop it, if I may? Why did this study stop at Park Lane instead of just continuing so we own the north, we own the north half as well, right? We already own the north half. And so we know that there are no pathways up into that area. So why is the southern half targeted? Was there no direction given? I'm just asking the question if there's any direction given to sort of look at a more comprehensive pathway that might join up to, let's say, Grays Park.
Through the chair, the motion that was passed by council specifically referenced this parcel. So there was no direction given to council to look at the northern portion at this point.
If I might, though, looking at the diagram there, where it terminates would be pretty close to where our existing road allowance is already. So, there would probably be opportunity to connect right to Park Lane Way there. I don't know if it's in the plans, but you could look at a traditional sidewalk from that point to get out to the main road there.
And so the cost of doing this, you've costed out in asphalt. What would it cost to do it in just gravel for now, just making it a walkway instead of a pathway that could be used for bicycles and other traffic, just like the rest of the park? Just ask the question.
I'd have to come back to council with that. I don't know what that would be. It'd be less, but I don't know what the number would be off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Sorry. Deputy Mayor Wiley.
So there is a gravel part in the north, right? Is that? Yeah. And so if we wanted to swing it the other way or eventually add a swing up to the north, you're probably only talking another 100 meters maybe. Yeah. So this would be maybe phase one of eventually connecting it. I'm actually ready with a motion on this.
Okay, I'll just double check with council. Are there any further questions for Mr. Dugdale? Seeing none. Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Okay. Actually, we've been recommended, maybe should we call a quick recess to draft the motion and then?
Sure.
I certainly have something written up, but would it be administration's prefer to have a quick recess and draft something?
Yeah, it's an either or. It would be a good idea to have a recess, but rather
Well, maybe I'll
than-
give you the gist of it, and then you can tell me if we need a recess for it, because I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to direct administration to bring it back to a committee of the whole. So I've worded it like this. The council direct administration to return to a future committee of the whole meeting to discuss funding and various designs for the naturalized area boardwalk south of Grays Park.
Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So when we did a community survey and asked the citizens what recreation they prioritize the most, certainly outdoor activities came, I think it was like 7 out of the top 10 things that people wanted. Our pathway systems, I heard again and again, door knocking, just how much residents appreciate them. On 6 months of the year in Strathmore, you can go out and run into people on every different pathway. We have a very active town, and it's because of 20 years of our council putting into these pathways. It's a high priority for me to continue that legacy. The concept of connecting Kinsman Park eventually to Grays Park, I think if anyone were to take a Google map of this town and look down at it and see that green space as it crawls from the highway through Kinsman Park, up into Grays, all the way up to the north there, it is seriously, it's the kind of progressive vision that I think other small cities are going to be very envious of in the future, that we have this space, and I want to maximize the use of it as much as possible. The final reason I'm making this motion is it's an affordable recreation facility. We're not talking about something in the millions or even in the high hundreds of thousands here to put in, but it's something that all people in this town will use, and it's going to be awesome. So I really just see this as phase one in eventually incorporating Kinsman and Grays Park as much as possible together. So
Deputy Mayor, may I ask you a question? Is there a reason for your preference for a committee of the whole versus a regular meeting where you could have a motion on the floor for your, for this potential project?
Yeah, I actually considered, in fact, I've scratched it out. I considered just directing administration to bring this back as a budget item. But as soon as I heard Councillor Brown ask a question about alternate routes, it occurred to me it would probably be better for us to all maybe put a little bit more thought into exactly how we envision that path. And also, I was thinking we probably don't need to do a public consultation in this. We could cut $10,000 off the budget. And the reason I say that is because of the rec survey we just did, I don't know, 18 months to 2 years ago, to me was a public consultation. And I heard very loud and clear in that people love our pathways and continue to support that. So I think it's probably worth discussing a little bit further in a committee of the whole.
Thank you, and I totally agree. I love the idea that this pathway could also be asphalt so that people of all mobility, of all mobilities, could traverse this and get into the wetlands and be a part of it, learn more. So I really like that. I like your motion, and I'll go to Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I would, if we're crafting a motion, I would like the motion to have or make an amendment that we do consider alternatives. And I understand the want and the benefit of having asphalt go through and people of all abilities being able to use it. But I also remember from budget meetings that about $100,000 was a 1% tax increase, and this is about 200, and so that would be a 2% tax increase to pay for this equivalent, whether you eventually you pay for it. And so I would like to understand the alternatives if we bring it back to the committee of the whole, not because I'm saying I'm in favor of just doing one over the other, but I'd like to actually be able to compare the benefit of one over the other so that we can actually determine if that's what we want to do for the residents. May I add that to your motion?
So I think the proper procedure would be, Jonathan, that he would bring forth an amendment and then we would vote.
Can I reread mine? Because I think my motion has that in it.
Okay.
that
Deputy
all right,
Mayor, sure.
So I just want to read mine again. So I move that we direct administration to return to a future committee of the whole meeting for us to discuss the funding and various options of the naturalized area boardwalk south of Grays Park. And so I don't know if I need to include this then in the motion. Is basically I'm just asking for you to come forward with a couple of options of different directions it could go and price points if we wanted to choose gravel over asphalt. Do I need to add that into the motion? Is it fair
No,
enough?
through the chair, I don't think so. I mean, we've heard a couple things here tonight. If there's some latitude, if we come back with something that we haven't discussed tonight, if that's, if we've got some leniency from council and things that we can look at in addition to what has been discussed here tonight.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Councillor Brown, how do you feel about that motion now that you've heard it again?
I'm absolutely fine with that. Thank you.
And a question for Leanna. I think we have a regular line item for pathway life cycle that we typically do pathways in a year, and we did one at the fire hall to the Ball Diamond by Sacred Heart and Holy Cross. Holy Cross, I guess, is that at that end of the school. So the concept of a paved path here, even though it's looking at 210,000, it could fit into the budgeted amount or line item of the pathway life cycle anyway. So that might alleviate some of your concerns, Councillor Brown. CAO Scoble.
Related, not related. If I could just make a suggestion with some additional work here, make a suggestion that there be a committee of the whole specified, and I would suggest May or June committee of the whole.
Sounds good. Did you guys hear that?
I was just
CAO Scoble?
suggesting that with some additional work on options here and that it might be prudent to include in the motion the May or June committee of the whole, just because we've got some more work to do here.
Yeah, so do I do it as an amendment to my own motion? I think you said future. I just said future, but I could add in at administration's convenience. So, and I am fine, I understand there's a lot going on right now, so I actually don't even want to make the deadline May or June, I just want to trust the administration. This is a 4-year plan, like it doesn't have to be this year. So I would like to amend that council direct administration to return to a future committee of the whole meeting at administration's convenience.
Thank you. I'll turn to Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on about our practices and processes. So is this something that, when we talk about funding, that philanthropic could be funding through philanthropic means from residents?
Through the chair, certainly. I mean, as a background to this, we've had some discussions last term with some not-for-profit groups or other entities in the region that might be interested in participating as well.
Okay, so we do that as a practice. We in the report coming back, it would talk about philanthropic.
Yeah, like I don't think we'd be out seeking donors at this point, but it would be an option. But we may provide additional information on further discussions with parties we've talked to already.
Deputy Mayor Wiley, one last question. As part of your motion, would you also like, or is it going to also encompass the current gravel pathway that goes through the wetland? Or is that a completely separate one for you? I don't think it's shown well on this, but there is an existing.
Yeah, so
gravel
Councillor
path.
Langmaid has the Google Maps up here. The distance between administration's proposed 240-meter asphalt pathway and probably linking it right up to the bridge is over another 400 meters. So I think that would be out of our scope at this point. I think that would have to be a future phase. And so no, I guess in short.
Perfect. That answers my question. Is everybody on council here understanding of the motion that's on the floor? Are you comfortable with it? Any further comments or discussion? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Dugdale.
Thank you.
We move now to item 9.2, 2026 Operating Budget Amendment, Water Continuity
Sorry, Your
Project. Liana? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Your
Jonathan?
Worship. Just to clarify, I understand the council voted on the amendment to the original motion. So now council needs to vote
Oh,
on the original
okay,
motion.
so now
without
we
voting.
have the amended motion on the floor. Thank you, Jonathan.
sure.
So we have the amended motion on the floor which Deputy Mayor Wiley put forward. Any questions or concerns or comments on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, Liana.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm here tonight to present an option for a budget amendment for administration to start a water continuity project. This would mean that we would be delaying our sanitary master servicing study until the 2026 capital project for the Central Trunk Sewer project is completed, and that council would approve that money be diverted to the 2026 operating budget amendment that for the sanitary, or for the water continuity project. Any questions?
Questions for Liana? I think council is pretty aware and understanding of the item on the agenda. So if there are no questions, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, may I make a motion? You bet. Thank you. I move that, thank you, by the way, Liam. I move that council direct administration to delay the sanitary master servicing study until the 2026 Central Trunk Sewer project is completed, and that council approve a 2026 operating budget amendment that reallocates $150,000 from the sanitary master servicing study to the water continuity project.
Thank you for that motion. Did you want to speak to it at all?
No, I think we're well versed on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any discussion on the motion put forward by Councillor Brown? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. We now move to item 9.3, Wheatland Housing Management Body, Letter of Support, CAO Scoble or Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you, Worshiping Council. Over the past several years, Town of Strathmore Council has passed a number of motions related to the collaboration with regional partners, including Wheatland County, and the villages of Rockyford, Standard, and Hazar, for the potential development of a 120-unit Wheatland Lodge, which would be operated by Wheatland Housing Management Body. The town has received a request from WHMB, so the Wheatland Housing Management Body, for a letter of support for the proposed new lodge slash hospice project. This would support WHMB's reapplication for the Affordable Housing Partnership Program grant, as they have been advised that all municipalities must be in full support of the project, and the application submission deadline is January 31st. So the signed letter of support from the municipalities would be required before that date. So tonight, administration is going to be recommending that council authorize Mayor Fuel to sign the letter of support for the WHMB project and invite the WHMB board and CAO to a future council meeting to update town council on the project, including some of the updates to the financial contributions for the project that are outlined in your RFD in tonight's report for council.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any questions for Jonathan concerning this letter of support? Deputy Mayor Wiley?
I have questions, but I'm not sure if Jonathan's the best source, but I am looking at slide 18 of the Wheatland Housing Management Body presentation of January 6th. I'm wondering if there's any way administration could put that slide up. We just had it resent to us as well. It was updated, I believe, with some new numbers. There it is. Oh, my apologies. It was the last one. Maybe I said the wrong number. If you just go back one slide, that's the one. So I'm asking these questions as basically for the public at home, just to try and help them get their minds around some of the numbers we're being asked to support here. So Wheatland Housing Management Body is proposing to build a 120-room lodge on land directly adjacent to Kinsman Park. We might call it Kinsman Park scrubland. And it is, I think, expected to cost at this point, I believe, $76-point-something million. And so I just wanted to go through some numbers with the public at home. And I would start just with a point that I've had to clarify for a lot of people at home. It's the Wheatland Housing Management Body's mandate. In other words, who are they building the lodge for? I've had a lot of people say to me, get this lodge built. I can't wait till it's up, because when I'm too old to live in my house and I can't take care of myself anymore, where am I going to live? And I think it's, and maybe the board can clarify for me, but it's really important that people understand this lodge is not being built as a high level of health, or a high level of care. It's actually an L1, which means it would be an introductory level of care. Am I correct in that?
So it's congregate living. It's for residents who do not require additional, or who do not require extra help. So they pretty much have to be self-sufficient. They do have home care in there that does help a little bit with some of the residents on menial things, and that's probably the wrong word, but maybe getting them to the dining room. They do have health care or home care in there that looks after minor minor medical issues. But again, it's congregate living. They do not need the support that they would get from a Sagewood or, when it is built, a Shasta. Those are higher levels of care for the seniors. did that.
Yeah, in effect, I think you said it so much clearer than I was trying to say it, so thank you, Councillor Wagner. That to me, if we could just let that sit for a moment, is really one of the big divisions going on in town. Is I think people are under the impression that when we can get this built, there's going to be a place for them to go when they are unable to take care of themselves. And in reality, that's just not even what is being proposed to build. That is not what this project is about. So now I just want to go through some numbers. What Strathmore is being asked to support here, if we go ahead with this letter of support, what would be eventually being asked to support is a one-time capital debt that Strathmore will be contributing. And I believe that number is $2.865 million. So we would say almost $3 million. And that's correct? And it would be proposed over a 25-year amortization. Something like that?
The amortization is variable. They've, I mean, the lower the amortization, the sooner it gets paid off, but the higher the cost type of thing. And so, I mean, we've discussed 20 years, 40 years, I think, is what is in there now. There has even been a talk of a 50-year amortization, but because of CMHC and the new build Canada homes or something like that, I'm not sure if a 50-year amortization is possible. But so, again, a lot of it is it's still looking to where we can get our best bang for our dollar.
And I appreciate all the work that the board has done on this. Just for the people at home, a 40-year amortization actually takes you to paying over double the interest on your original borrow. So if we're talking about almost $3 million in borrowing, and by the way, this is only the first item on what we would be asking to approve, but if we're looking at borrowing $2.8 million, we run that over 40 years, we're going to be paying an extra $3 million on it. Okay, the next item is something called a BCH loan or a debt. In this one, this would be borrowing from the federal government. Strathmore would be expected to pay about a third of that, which means we would also be taking out another 40-year amortized debt of roughly $5.8 million. And does that sound about correct? Okay, help me through that.
Okay, so I'll try. So the project, the Wheatland Housing Authority is looking for partner injections, capital injections from the partners of, it's roughly $10 million. So in this instance, the town of Strathmore, it's roughly $2.8 million that they would be injected into the project. Wheatland Housing Authority on the separate entity would be borrowing roughly $37 million, $38 million and change on its own entity over a 40-year period, as it's proposed right now, with a portion of that to be forgiven. And $20 million of that would be forgiven based on certain criteria that the Wheatland Housing Management operation must fulfill, such as debt servicing requirements might be an example. So in addition to that, the town of Strathmore would be look at supporting as on a requisition, and CA Scobalod get some clarity on the requisitions that come from the Wheatland Housing Authority. How are they accounted for by the town of Strathmore?
I'll let Leanna speak to that.
With all of our requisitions, it doesn't matter if it's the seniors, the designated industrial properties, or education, that is a flow-through. So council is responsible for the cost increase on the municipal portion, and we have very little input into the requisitions. So currently, I believe I'm going to call it the older lodge, because this is the new lodge to me, it's a deficit funding. So whatever they are short on an annual basis, they then use our equalized assessments between our partners for the seniors, and then we pay our proportionate share.
And that is directed through the province to the municipality.
Yes,
And it shows up as a line item on our property taxes,
that is correct.
separate from the town of Strathmore property.
That is correct.
So then that funding then is requisitioned from the Wheatland Housing Authority, from the town, and they, for operating. Yeah, through ministerial order. So, just to recap, the town would be responsible for funding the 2.8 million, plus the properties in lieu of a additional, is added into that 3.3 million, so it's not 2 million.
I believe it's, Counselor, I believe it's 3.3 total inclusive of the land at 1.282. So it's about 2 million cash plus the land. Now, the caveat on the land is that's an approximate value subject to a final valuation. We've had a couple of valuations done, but it could be lower or higher depending on the real estate market at the time that the transfer is going to happen.
So the borrowing entity is the Wheatland Housing Board of 20 million and 17 million, about 38 million dollars. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I'm definitely oversimplifying here, but at the end of the day, when the Wheatland Housing Management Board takes out a loan, the taxpayers that support that board will see an increase of taxes on their property through a requisition. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is the part of the BCH loan that is not being forgiven is 17 million, and Strathmore taxpayers will be on the hook for roughly 30% of that, which is about 5.8 million. They will have to pay off through their taxes as a flow-through requisition. Yeah.
Yes. I would add that should the Wheatland Housing better or enhance their revenue, that requisition could drop. So based on the business case, and I would ask that the Wheatland Housing Authority come back to council with the business case and how they operationalize this lodge to better get an understanding on what the long-term requisitions might look like in different
So
scenarios.
he gave us about a 10-year business case. And
Yeah.
even by the end of the 10th year, they were only at a surplus of about $100,000 a year. And he said, I'm paraphrasing here, $100,000 a year surplus is basically zero when you're talking those kinds of numbers.
Yeah, the support from the communities, the municipal communities are for the life of the loan. I would say that.
So kind of along with that, yeah, they had the breakdown, and I think after second or third year, it showed a minuscule surplus. Then it started going up after that. There is a possibility, again, everything is theoretical. If we fill that lodge up immediately, we're going to eventually get to that point a little bit faster. Will we get rid of the requisitions? As Councillor Kester said, yeah, we can get rid of those requisitions probably at some point. If we keep seeing a deficit and not filling it up, which is a possibility, then we'll keep seeing some sort of we'll be seeing a requisition. So it's
Could I ask a question?
yeah.
I went to the meeting on January 6th, and I thought that this was simply a letter of support and that there are still off-ramps between now and the summer. And that's my first question to you guys, you gentlemen on the board. The second question, has Wheatland County Council voted on this letter of support, on their letter of support?
I can take that. So yeah, this is just strictly for a letter of support saying that the town of Strathmore supports the lodge. There are off-ramps all the way right up until almost the end before they put shovels in the ground. So if at any point it's not looking good, we can pull the pin on that and at that off-ramp and get off. And all the other municipalities have signed their letter of support. The county, the villages, all signed, all voted unanimously for signing that letter of support. So again, that's all that is tonight, that's all we're looking for is just that letter of support from the town, and that will go towards it'll be part of the package for, it's too late for this offering, but if we don't get accepted this time, they'll go in for the next offering. So again, it's letter of support, and as Mayor Fuel said, there are plenty of off-ramps should we decide, or should council decide that this project is not feasible.
Thank you for answering those questions. I'll go back to Deputy Mayor Wiley. I think you had other things you're going to
Yeah, if
raise.
it's all right, I do have one train of thought unless Councillor Langmaid has a response.
Just a thought that this is a really important conversation to have, and it is important for the folks at home to understand this and for the folks behind the table to understand this. But I'm not sure that tonight is the right evening to be having the discussion. I would prefer to have this discussion and have these questions answered when we have the Wheatland Housing Management Board and the CAO here to answer these questions themselves, so that we can get the best possible answer. Not that you are not a wonderful.
The questions I'm asking are all just right there on the slide, so I'm just confirming the numbers there.
Okay, well then they're not really questions, you're just reading the slide to us. Either way, I think the conversation is best to be had when representatives of the Wheatland Housing Management Board are here to provide the additional context behind one slide of what is a very complicated project.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to add up some numbers here. There was one more number, I believe it's on this page, or maybe it was just in our last budget. Yeah, it was on our last few budgets. So I believe Wheatland currently requisitions about $150,000 a year as flow-through requisition on the property taxes. Would that be close? I think last year was $168,000.
Normally, we see requisitions from Wheatland Management Housing Board right around the $150,000 mark. I believe it was 2 years ago, we had 2 requisitions and they ended up refunding the 1 requisition. So in 2025, we actually probably only collected from our residents about $55,000 because we refunded that 1 requisition. But on the average, I'd say the requisition on an annual basis is roughly between $135,000 and $160,000.
Okay, fair. So I just took out a calculator, assuming that the first debt that we would be taking on, the $2.865 million, was a 25-year amortization, and maybe it'll be a 40. That the $5.8 million that Strathmore residents will be taking on as a flow-through requisition, and adding on the current requisitions of about $150,000. What we're being asked to support here tonight is approximately $650,000 a year of either direct debt or flow-through requisitions from the Wheatland Housing Management Body. And then there's still a few more things I would add to that. So that's an annual, $650,000 annual. And there's still a few more things. On top of that, we will be eventually asked to support a Class A budget. And I can't remember if a Class A was 1 million or 2 million. One or two, which we would then have to pay a third of. And also in the best case business plan, the Wheatland Housing Management was full. The best case business plan is that the lodge is full on the 3rd year with a 95% capacity. And so of course there is obviously room there for that requisition to unfortunately be even higher. And so the $650,000 annual is just best case scenario. That's the best case scenario requisition. So those are my questions anyway.
I'll just weigh in. I would like to point out to the public that, the total funding comes at over 71 million. There's a reason that the price is that high, and that is we've had so many delays that it's driven up the price of this lodge. And first, I'm going to apologize to Councillor Chisholm, because I found this summer I was doing some reading about affordable seniors housing, and I'm going to apologize because I'm going to quote Scotiabank, who I know is a competitor when you were a banker, but it stated that 50% of seniors in their mid-80s will have to go to some form of congregate affordable seniors housing. And I believe seniors housing, affordable seniors housing, is a mandate for municipalities. So my point is that 50% of our seniors who hit that mid-80s, and there is a big bubble of baby boomers that are approaching that, are going to need affordable congregate care. And I agree that this lodge that's being presented is not one with a great high level of care. It's just for people who may have some struggles at home and want to live in a housing facility. So if that number of people are going to approach the age where they need congregate housing, then what are the plans for affordable housing for our seniors in the next 5 to 7 years? Like, we have to do something. And the price keeps going up because there have been delays for a variety of reasons in the work that these people who are on our council have been doing. And I'm quite passionate about this because there are a lot of seniors in our town who won't be able to afford really high-level seniors housing. And this type of a lodge is going to be something that they can afford. So this is, again, as I said earlier, this is just the letter of support. All the other municipalities have done it. There are off-ramps for us, but at this point, I think all we're looking at is the letter of support. So those are my comments. Councillor Langmaid?
I'm ready with a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you.
I'd like to move that council authorize Mayor Fuel to sign the Wheatland Housing Management Body Letter of Support as presented in Attachment 1, and that council direct administration to invite the Wheatland Housing Management Board and CAO to present the project update, including financial contributions to council at a future council meeting. And if I might speak to it for a second. The lodge project is something that I feel is well needed within our community, and I recognize that it does come at a cost, and often good things do come at a cost. Things don't generally come to us for free. One thing that I heard loud and clear during the election, and I continue to hear every day, is how the cost of living is going up, and that affordability is a concern for many, and especially for seniors who are often living on a fixed budget that is not increasing at the pace that inflation is. Seniors are not all seniors are in a position to be able to retire in their homes and to remain in their home for the entirety of their lives. That's one, often not financially possible, and two, sometimes not accessible for them in terms of stairs and things like that. And that's where congregate living situations like the lodge become really important in our community, particularly for women who often don't have a pension to fall back on, and are often left behind as having less income in their older years and really needing these congregate living spaces. And we see that right now. If you go into the lodge, there's a lot of really lovely ladies in there who are happy to call the lodge home. In terms of this letter of support, not only do I personally support the project and believe that it's in the best interest for our community and the residents of our community, I also recognize that we have a number of motions and a number of resolutions already passed by council that still stand, stating that we support this project. And I believe it would be inconsistent of us to not support this letter of support when we have resolutions on the table that still support the project. So I feel obligated, and not only am I willing to support this, but I feel obligated to support this, that as long as our resolutions stand that we support this project, then we should be supporting this letter of support and approving this letter of support to be signed by the mayor. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I'll turn now to Councillor Wegener and then Councillor Brown.
So just going off what Councillor Langmaid said, there are a lot of people that are going to require this here in the next while. Again, this is assisted living because some of it's all based on, it's income-based on, according to their T4. And again, a lot of people just can't afford to live in some of these fancy lodges or these for-profit lodges. If you look in Calgary, some of these for-profit lodges are costing you $6,000 to $7,000 a month to live in. Some of our seniors on fixed incomes in the area cannot afford that. Also, at one of our earlier sessions, I believe they were talking about the overnight shelter. And I believe the number I heard was somewhere around 60% of the overnight shelter is seniors, or a huge amount. So these are seniors that have no place to go, or they can't get into the lodge because of the wait list, which there is a wait list here, and that. So I will be supporting the letter of support, as well as we go further. I will be supporting the lodge build.
Thank you for that. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Some very important discussion took place this evening. I think that Councillor Wiley has really highlighted the costs to the project as they are now, and I do recognize that as things don't get completed and as years pass and we don't get shovels in the ground, that those costs go up. I also recognize that there are 120 bedrooms that are available for L1 seniors, and I believe that seniors do need a place to live at some point when they can't really do that fully independently. And so, but I also want to point out a couple of things. One is this might be a lodge for 120 beds, but there are probably equally as many or more seniors that won't be in the lodge. And those seniors would be impacted by the tax increases that would be coming upon them. And so they would have to make their ends meet and do their thing. So it does benefit the people that end up in the lodge, and it doesn't benefit those that don't. Furthermore, I also believe that it would, to the potentially the best case scenario as things are, to the benefit or not the benefit of most of the taxpayers. We're looking again at 100 is 1%. We're looking at on average a 6% tax increase to just have this materially. And so I have concerns over that. Now I understand that this is just a letter of support. What I'm seeing right now is a project that is very expensive. Necessary, expensive, beneficial for some, not beneficial for a lot of others. And I have concerns about it. Now, all of that being said, I want to say that I will support the letter of support for now. However, I would caveat that in the sense that I believe we need to get better funding for this, and we can't fund this all ourselves. I don't believe we should shoulder the burden of this, so we need to work or sharpen our pencils, or Wheatland Housing needs to do something to alleviate or assuage these potential pitfalls and the tax burden that people will have to pay. And so I commend them for all their work. I'm supporting the idea. I'm supporting their efforts. But I do definitely have concerns about the costs. But I will support it now for one and one only reason. There is an off-ramp. But if this doesn't change, I'm not sure how I would feel about this in the future. That's all.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hyde?
I've enjoyed the conversation today, and I hear a lot of opinions and thoughts. I hear the need for us to move urgently. Affordable living is a critical piece, not just for seniors, but for families, for even the single individuals who are living off a single income. There is a need for affordable living for everyone. And to echo Councillor Brown's words, that we do need to make sure that this is affordable for everyone. $580,000 per unit is a big ticket. And that kind of sets you back in your seat when you hear $580,000 per unit, because that would build some pretty nice houses in Strathmore based on even off of today's construction costs. So I'll follow the path of several here and support the letter tonight, but I would encourage everybody to sit down and maybe start reimagining. But like, I think that's part of our slogan as a town is rural reimagined. I would encourage you to start reimagining this, because if this doesn't get off the ground, we don't have another 4, 8, 12, 16 years to figure this out. So if this isn't the model, because I see flaws with this model, and the more we discuss it, the deeper my thoughts are. I'm looking forward to the presentation, but we need to come up with an affordable solution that will be affordable for all of the residents of Strathmore. And that's the seniors, that's the families, that's all of the taxpayers of our community. And at $580,000 per unit, I'm hesitant to think that this is it, but I'll support as we continue to gain more information. Thank you.
For the public at home, I'd just like to clarify the cost per unit when you look at a senior's lodge. And you have to factor in things like the kitchen facilities, the appliances, the HVAC system. All of those things contribute to the price per unit that is set up. The other thing that factors in is the specific type of flooring that is a low injury flooring, wider hallways. All those things factor into why the cost per unit seems to be so excessively high. The other comment I would make as far as how, people who don't go to a lodge would subsidize people who do, isn't that what we do in a lot of our situations as a municipality and as a resident? I don't swim, I don't skate, but I subsidize, I put in my fair share of tax money to go to those kinds of facilities. And one of the things I've always been proud about as far as being a Canadian is that we're a society that looks out for each other, that we care for each other, that we try to find ways to help each other. And so this is going to be an expensive lodge build, absolutely. But again, it's only this expensive because there have been delays from various areas. And if we, as you said, Councillor Hyde, if we don't do something soon, there's a big bubble of baby boomers who are going to be needing help, and we need to have something in place then that's going to be affordable housing for seniors at 50% of our seniors, as I said. I'll go to Councillor Chisholm and then Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll weigh in my 2 cents on it, and I structured this in 3 ways. The first way is strategically this initiative aligns, the data says that we need to provide housing for our seniors. It does. The data says that we would need to do that. So strategically it fits in. Now I'd go for the project costs. The project costs are leaning high, and that's certainly post-COVID. When I interact with the consultant, the costs have went up 81% since COVID, since the business case was done for this project. So it's a lot of money. And my point here is that the numbers are the numbers, and they're probably at the max from a business model perspective that we could lean on. The biggest part of projects, and it's fun talking about it and get them done, the biggest part is operationalizing it. And this is where we need further analysis from the Wheatland Board and their management team on a business case and how they're, what it could look like, because we don't want to lean on taxpayers. We want cost recovery at some point, and we don't want to lean on taxpayers for 40 years to help pay this loan off. So there's more work to be done on operationalizing this. So initially, there is jump-off points, so I'll support the letter as well. Really working hard with the Wheatland Management, with the board and the operational team there on this goes through operationalizing it, what does better look like?
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm, and I appreciate the three of you, Councillors Brown, Hyde, and Chisholm, who kind of brought us back to the fact that they will support this letter of support at this time, and then more information can come to us. So I appreciate you trying to steer us back, because we've kind of got into, and I've been a part of it too, where you get into the philosophy behind it and the lodge concept in general. So I appreciate those comments. Councillor Langmaid, and then I'll finish with Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know I've already spoken on this, but I just want to say that I appreciate the conversation that's been going on, and want to reiterate what I've been hearing is that if this is not the project, if this is not the project, then what? And I believe this is the project, but if it doesn't have the support, then we really need to start considering the and what question, because what a shame it would be for the seniors of Strathmore who have paid property taxes in here for years and who have called this community home and helped build this community not be able to retire here. And what a failure it would be of this council to have that be the outcome for them, that they can't stay in the home that the town that they've always called home. So if it's not this, then let's have a serious conversation about what it needs to be, because we need to take care of these people.
Deputy Mayor Wiley?
Okay, so I will not be supporting the letter of, I will not be voting in favor of the letter of support. And I actually urge the rest of council to reconsider their support. I have 7 reasons why I can't support this. So this 120 room, $76 million, $850,000 door lodge, we can't afford. So it's $650,000 a year annual, which is the best case business scenario, plus a Class A budget, plus losses for years 1 and 2 while it's still not at capacity. And remember, that's best case scenario, that it's not at capacity in years 1 and 2. That is a minimum of a 5% tax increase is what we're being asked to support tonight. The second reason I can't support this is because the math says we will be subsidizing non-Strathmore and non-county residents to live in this lodge. So I just want you to think about this for a second. There's 120 rooms to fill, and there is between 20 and 40 people on the waiting list at any given time. Where are these extra 80 to 100 people coming from? And the answer is Calgary. So within the 3rd year of this lodge being built, the lodge will be full. It will be 95% capacity, but 80 to 100 of them will not be Strathmore or Wheatland County residents. They will be people that are being subsidized from outside of our county and outside of our town to live in this lodge. The third is probably the most important, because every time I hear this being debated, even tonight, I hear people say that when Strathmore residents need to move into the lodge. The reality is that this is the lowest level of health care. Seniors tell me they can't wait for this lodge to be built, because when they're no longer able to stay in their home, that this is where they want to go, but this is independent living. Seniors want to stay in their home. The fourth reason I will not be supporting this is we're being asked to, we are going to be losing our parkland and green spaces. Kinsman Park is the heart of Strathmore, and I know that this scrub land right now is being mostly just used for parking, but at major events, it's being used for parking. And someday that scrubland can become part of the gem, and this is prime real estate in town. The fifth reason I will not be supporting this is, as we heard the consultant Derek Weiss say, this new Build Canada Homes is totally unpredictable. 20 million of the unforgivable loan has unknown criteria. We just don't even know what to expect. I don't want to gamble. I don't want to put more good money into this next proposal after bad. The sixth reason I will not be supporting this is we keep getting told that all we're doing is signing a letter of support and there's off-ramps. But we've already heard tonight that once we vote in favor of the lodge and we take these incremental steps forward, then we are obligated to keep supporting it. I was told last term in my very first year when I agreed and voted in favor of this letter of support that there would be lots of off-ramps. But the reality is that for 4 years, I was told I couldn't even debate the lodge as I was going against a council decision. The final reason I will not be supporting this letter of support is because we can do better. I keep getting told that if not this project, what? But the reality is seniors don't want this project. What they want is is funding home care so that they can stay in their homes as long as possible. There are other options. There are private options like Shasta. There are nonprofit options. I went and toured Abbeyfeld Homes in High River. And there are smaller, more affordable options, for example, like renovating a hotel. So in conclusion, I think the sooner that we communicate to the board that we're not satisfied that this is the project moving forward, the sooner the board can go back and start coming up with solutions to help our seniors. In other words, I'm supporting seniors by not supporting this letter because it's going to direct the Wheatland Housing Management Body to come up with something that can be done sooner and for more affordable instead of dragging this project on and on.
I think one of the things to consider is, you know, when you look at the amount of money that equates to a 1% property tax increase, but the figures that have been mentioned in the past in the previous council showed that it impacts an individual taxpayer a very small amount per month to have a seniors lodge. And I think Councillor Wegan, you might be able to speak to that. So you can mention that it's a property tax increase of X amount, but you also need to look at what that equates to as far as an individual person's property tax. And again, we're starting to we've gotten farther into debating the lodge project. We're still just talking about a letter of support. All the municipalities within this county have signed the letter of support, have approved the letter of support. So it will come back to us again in the future. Councillor Wyde, then Councillor Hyde. Okay, Councillor Hyde.
I got called Councillor Wyde, I'm not sure why. But all good, all good. Sorry. So that was those were seven good reasons, Brent. And I hadn't thought along the line of if I vote in favor of this letter that it would hinder my ability to debate it or stand against it down the road. And that gives me pause. So thank you for sharing those 7 reasons.
Jonathan, procedurally, voting for a letter of support, would that hinder a councillor in the future when when we approach these off-ramps, if a councillor does not want to go along with, say the funding comes to us at a later date and this person has voted in support of the letter of support, does that force the councillor to not then vote for the funding?
Thank you, Worship Council. So the way that I understand this motion is to authorize you to sign a letter of support and then also invite WHMB, the board and the CAO to a future meeting to present this project to council at that time. Part of that presentation in the motion would be to discuss these slides that have updates to what the financial contributions would be. So currently, council's motions reflect a different level of contribution than what you see on the slide before you. Council can always amend or rescind previous motions, I guess. So it wouldn't preclude council from revisiting an issue per se, if that item comes back to council for consideration.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Brown, Jonathan, do we need a motion to have a potential extension of the meeting?
Absolutely, Your Worship. I didn't
Okay,
realize what
so
time
we
it
should
was.
do that before we finish up this?
Was already a motion on.
Or should we do it, can we do it right after we wrap this up?
If council, yeah, whatever council's most comfortable with.
Okay. Does council expect more discussion on the letter of support motion? Or
Yes, I'd like to say one more.
you have one more thing, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll have to keep it brief. I think that the economic points that Councillor Wiley has brought up are valid. I believe his 7 points for not supporting the motion, I completely understand. And I do recognize that this is just a means of moving this into the next phase. And I understand as well that we do have off-ramps. Those are not closed to us. And I want to see something move forward. Definitely. I don't want to close the door on any possibility. I do really love the wetland. I love the park. I love the fact that we use it for parking when there are major events. I understand that all of these things but a lot of these decisions have been made so far. I believe I will still be supporting this motion because I believe there is still an off-ramp. However, I do want to very much state that we need to do something about the overall cost of the project. It has to be, we have to do better than this. And if this does not turn out to be the solution, let's be clear, it's not the end. There are other things that can be pursued. And so there's never an end to anything. There's always other options. There's always other things we can do. And I think that whatever comes of this later in the year, we can look at that and we'll take it into consideration as we go. So I will still be supporting this, but I completely understand where Councillor Wiley's coming from. And I support him and his point of view as well as what he's sort of put forward, but I am still going to vote for this. That's the last I want to say, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid, and then Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to provide some clarification because I think some wording that I used earlier might have caused some confusion within council, and that was using the term obligation. We are not obligated in any way once we sign this, if we approve this letter of support to continue on. What I meant by the obligation and what I was intending to communicate is that we still have these open resolutions on the table. Councillor Wiley has indicated that, he's been stopped from debating against the project, and while I can see where he's coming from with that, the proper procedure to debate against a motion and a resolution that has been made would be to make a motion to rescind that resolution. And that has never been brought before this council, and it's never been stopped from being brought before this council. No one has attempted to bring a motion to rescind any of the resolutions that council has made in support of this project. No one is stopped from doing that. No one has been stopped from doing that. What we have tried to communicate is that while these resolutions of council have been passed, there is, as we learned in our orientation, we all pull in the same direction. Once a resolution is passed, whether we like it or not, we move forward with the will of council. That is the democratic process. You don't always win the fight, but you push with the team. And that is what I was intending to communicate by saying we have these open resolutions. Council has resolved to support this project. And while those resolutions are still active, I feel that the appropriate move forward is to continue on with the letter of support. Now, if council if a member of council feels the need to make a motion to rescind, and that is the will of council, then I will also be supporting that direction of council. That's the process we have. So I just want to, I apologize if my use of the word obligation caused some confusion. I hope I've clarified it a little bit. And thank you.
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Actually, I really appreciate Councillor Langmaid explaining that, because that's exactly the situation that we will find ourselves in for the next 4 years, is once council approves that we support, by the way, it's this lodge project. So if you're supporting this tonight, you're supporting this proposal. Once we've supported this proposal, it would actually require us to rescind our support of this proposal in order to get onto any of those off-ramps. And so I think it's illustrated very clearly exactly what it is you're voting for tonight. You're saying that this council is supporting this lodge, and it would require us to rescind that support. And that's exactly the situation that we're already in.
Okay, is council confident in what, as far as understanding the motion that's on the floor? Does anyone need it read back? Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? And the motion carries. And now we need a motion to extend the meeting. Councillor Langmaid.
Your worship, I'd like to move that council extend tonight's meeting to 11 p.m.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. It's a sad motion, but how do you feel? All in favor? And the motion is carried. We move on to the next one, 9.4, 2026 FCSS Advisory Board Family and Community Support Services Grant Program. Good evening, Mr. Brazier, and welcome. Thank you for your patience tonight.
Good evening, Your Worship, council members. I'm here to talk about the funding recommendations from the FCS Grant Advisory Board. As noted in my report, quorum was not met during the meeting that allocated the funds and made the recommendations for council to approve, but there was some urgency around awarding these funds, as several organizations that we do fund have started their programs in January. If there's any questions about my report and the funding recommendations, I'll do my best to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Brazier. Do we have questions? Councillor Brown.
Yes, actually, so this was initially on the consent agenda. And so the reason I asked for it to be removed was because there wasn't quorum in your meeting. And so it's my understanding that if you don't have quorum, you are supposed to adjourn the meeting. I looked through the approvals, and I'm not disputing in any way, shape, or form that people need the funds or they need these things moved forward. What concerns me is that we're doing it in a manner that doesn't have enough oversight if you don't have quorum. And so if you only have, let's say, 2 people at a meeting that's saying this ranks a 4 on this one and this ranks a 3 on the other, is there enough scrutiny that happens? And so I would ask the question, and it's difficult, and I know it's procedural, but should the meeting have even taken place without quorum? That's my question.
Mark, would you like to step in on this?
Yes, through the chair and Councillor Brown, procedurally you're correct. Obviously, this meeting should not have occurred. Obviously, there's been significant delays, and until today, that we still would barely have enough quorum based on the approvals of the recommendation of the council for this board. Obviously, delays would happen until this new member can be brought on to speed and schedule a meeting. So we'd probably be looking February or March, but ultimately the final recommendations go to council along with the scoring reports from the committee members. So ultimately, whether there was quorum or not, it would come to council for their consideration.
Okay, so I guess the follow-up question would be, you know, what I'm seeing in the data that's behind, or the supporting data that came with the FCSS, is I see a group that has asked for money. I don't see what it's for specifically, and I just see numbers in columns. I don't see any of that. And so I guess if there is no sort of quantifiable reason for doing that and only a couple of people looked at it, how do we know that the money that's being spent is, you know what I'm saying? Like the reason quorum exists for committees and certain things, and again, I'm not trying to stop people from getting their money. I'm just concerned with the oversight, and that's the question. Is there enough oversight, or can you provide more details, or is there more information that we can bring to council that would tell us how those numbers were arrived at to rank what was being asked for and what was being asked for specifically from each of those organizations? Some of those organizations already receive funding elsewhere directly from council. And in addition, they're getting them through FCSS. So again, my concern is, and it's a concern only, like it's that we don't know really what we're approving, and I'm uncertain as to whether or not there are enough people looking at it to say it was valid, to say that that should be approved. That's why I'm asking the question. That's why I brought it forward.
That's valid. And what I can do is I can come back to council with more detail per group and give you that specific reasoning why the funding board ranked them where they did and the premise of their programs.
Okay, and so I understand that you're asking for us to approve the funding tonight. Again, I'll let other people speak to this, but again, I want to make sure that if the council is approving money that's going out the door, we need to make sure that it's got enough eyes on it. It's really important that we do that. And again, this is not a trust against you as an individual or the other person that showed up to the meeting. It's really procedural, but those procedures exist for a reason. And so I had to ask the question.
That's fair.
Anyone else want to speak to
Thank
that?
you, Councillor Brown. A quick question for Mark. Mark, are any of these groups, is there a time crunch? Is there a time crunch for them to have money? Because many of these are historical and have been before past councillors before, but for new councillors, this could all be, obviously, it's brand new. Mark?
Through the chair, yes, Mayor Fuel, as Mr. Brazier indicated, a lot of these groups start their programming based on our on the calendar year. It's been our past practice not to include their program applications with this report, only the funding, only the scorecard. But if council wishes us to start to include those in future deliberation or future meetings, that's something we can definitely include with the package. But ultimately, as Mr. Brazier indicated, a lot of these programs would be starting now, and so any delays in funding could the program may not run at all, but ultimately we're not sure yet.
Thank you. My own sense is that we have this board for a reason, and they analyze and go through it all, and they put it through the scheme, and they mark it, and they categorize it like that, and they rank everything. We are in a bit of an anomaly because there's low attendance or there's low membership, so I can see that's a problem. But I'm comfortable with letting the board make the decisions and not get into the granular aspects of what each group actually does. Leave that to the board. But I also recognize that the membership has caused this question to come up. Deputy Mayor Wiley.
My apologies, I missed this in the agenda package. I wasn't even aware of it until Councillor Brown brought my attention to it, so that's my mistake. How many members were at the FCSS meeting that made this recommendation?
For the final recommendation meeting, there was 3 out of the 4 members.
Okay,
And we
so
had
there
one
were-
resignation just before Christmas, so
Okay.
we were put in a bad spot.
Definitely, it's a bad spot. Okay, so there were still 3 members there, which is not making quorum, but it was at least 3 sets of eyes on it. And then what would next, so worst case scenario, Director Petzloff, you've outlined that some of these programs might not even be able to run if we don't approve of them tonight. Is that correct? Like, you don't know, but you're saying worst case scenario would be that?
Yes, through the chair, obviously, delays in funding may delay the start of a program. Obviously, we don't administer directly the funding. We get a final report, so we can't speak to whether it'll be delayed or paused or won't run at all.
And Mayor Fuel, as you said, I recognize a lot of the names on here. These are groups that have come to rely on this FCSS grant funding year after year after year.
If you can't trust Christ the Redeemer,
Yeah, that'll go over well tomorrow at work.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it just because, you know, I've been to many of the events that these various groups do. I know the people involved. Is it problematic that they didn't have their full number? Absolutely, and hopefully we can rectify that. But as Deputy Mayor Wiley said, there were 3 sets of eyes on this. I understand, though, the concern and the worry that might have arisen from this. Did you want to say anything else? Were you still?
Yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, that's
Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Yeah, basically, I'm just thinking out loud. It's $100,000 in grant money that we'll be approving tonight to be recommended. There are 3 sets of eyes on there, and I see the urgency of this, and I recognize that these are groups that obviously have come to council year after year, or to the FCSS year after year. Unless there's another strong argument against, I'm very seriously leaning towards supporting it, but still recognizing this is less than an ideal situation and we need to get this fixed. So if there's anyone at home looking to volunteer for a very, very useful committee that only meets 3 to 4 times a year, that's responsible for directing the allocation of tens of thousands of dollars of grant money to fantastic organizations in town, this is for you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you. And again, not to put you on the hot seat, I just, you know, procedures exist for a reason. 3 out of 4 ain't bad, you know, I understand that. And so I have, again, as Mayor Fuel says, you know, we have to put trust in the committee, whatever committee we muster to do this. And seeing that there's more than 2 people, it's 3, that's actually more comforting. I would ask, until we get people to volunteer or to come to the committee or join the committee, and I will reiterate to the public that it's an awesome committee. You should probably go on it 4 times a year, a little extra cash in your pocket for showing up, and you get to do really good things. So please do. Oh, there's no cash. Oh, sorry. I take that back.
Fully volunteer.
Anyways, what I wanted to say was, you know, doing a good thing. And so I'm not leaning towards saying no. I just wanted to ask the questions to make sure that we're doing our diligence, right? And so we are beholden to the taxpayer, and we have to make sure. I would ask that in future, if possible, until we're able to get more people or into the FCSS, please provide some details other than just the score, so we've actually got a bit more context to base these decisions on. So I will be supporting the funding this evening, just so you know I'm not all bad. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Chisholm, then Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for bringing that, Councillor Brown. I got to own what I got to own. I should have did better on the regulation side of the quorum. What I can speak to is I went through the process. I sit on the board. It's a very it has a good process to it. It takes out as much emotion as possible for you to score these requests. And it's a numerical score, so it really puts the foundation into making good decisions with a little bit of emotion, but mostly practical decision making. So if that helps, and I'll do a better job next time myself.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As a councillor previously appointed to this committee, I can attest to the work that's done by the members, and that the committee does follow a very defined process in assessing these applications and in determining which ones receive funding. So I feel very confident that even though only 3 out of 4 were in attendance, I know that process was followed, and I feel confident in the outcomes that were reached. That being said, it would be nice for council to see a bit of a summary of what it is we are approving funding, just because I'd like to maybe brag about it a little bit occasionally. You know, maybe a bit of a selfish reason, but I'd like to brag about the good work that council does in the community. So that being said, I'm ready with a bit of an amended motion from what we have in our agenda this evening, but it's hopefully council will follow me along here. I'd like to move that council approve the following funding recommendations of the FCSS Advisory Board for the Family and Community Support Services and Calgary United Way grant programs. 5 for Life Early Childhood, $15,392. Accredited supports for the to the community, $4,500. Growing Families Bridging the Gap, $24,884. Hope Bridges Society, $7,560. Stand ASA, $5,100. Strathmore Library, $15,000. Golden Hill School Division, $22,753. Christ the Redeemer, $9,101. And that council direct administration to return with a summary of the programs being funded by the, at a future February, what dates are our February meetings? 4th, 11th, and 18th. At the February 18th regular council meeting. Give you a couple weeks, is that reasonable?
Through the chair, I can do that, yes.
Perfect.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Brazier.
Thank you, council.
We move now to item 10, bylaws. 10.1, 2026 operating expenditures line of credit borrowing bylaw number 26-01. Riley Brawley. Good evening, Mr. Brawley.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. From the Municipal Government Act, council has to formally approve of administration borrowing for operational expenses if and when necessary. So we ask council to pass this operating line of credit bylaw on an annual basis in advance of the potential for us needing it. We don't anticipate using this line of credit in 2026, and we haven't dipped into it in at least the last 5 years. The maximum line of credit available for the town to draw on in our agreements is $770,000, and we also maintain a revolving credit on our U.S. Bank Visa purchasing cards up to $230,000 for a $1 million total between the two. As part of this report as well, administration will recommend that council authorizes the mayor and CAO to sign the attached municipalities and school board agreement with Scotiabank, which is a documentation item on the bank's end tied to this line of credit bylaw. For anyone watching at home, we presented this at the committee of the whole last week as well. Council had asked some questions on rates, best practices, things like that we provided answers with. Does council have any further questions for me?
Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Having gotten my head around it, being very confident with this at the committee of the whole meeting last week, I am, well, actually, I'll ask you one question. How much do I appreciate all of you for still being here at 10:30 at night? 10 out of 10. Okay, here's the motion. I move that council give first reading to bylaw 2601, being the 2026 operating expenditures line of credit borrowing bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? That motion is carried. Do you want to carry on, Deputy Mayor?
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 2601, being the 2026 operating expenditures bylaw, credit borrowing bylaw.
Thank you. And now that we have a motion on the floor for second reading, is there discussion or comments on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? That motion is carried.
I move that council, sorry, may I?
You bet.
I move that council give unanimous consent to proceed with the third and final reading of bylaw 2601, being the 2026 operating expenditures line of credit borrowing bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor?
Oh, I had a question.
Oh, you have a question?
What if we don't all give unanimous consent?
Then it ends tonight.
Just joking. Okay, I just wanted to ask.
Or maybe we could spend another hour talking about it.
Okay,
Just having
thank
some
you.
fun.
I'm so glad that there was kind of a humorous question. So we have a motion on the floor for unanimous consent to proceed. All in favor? That motion is carried. Deputy Mayor?
The council give third and final reading to bylaw 2601, being the 2026 operating expenditures line of credit borrowing bylaw.
And thank you for that motion. All in favor? That motion is also carried. Yes, one last one. Councillor Langmaid to break the streak.
Is it okay if I break the streak? Do you want it?
Let's move on.
All right, that council authorize administration to sign and provide the municipalities and school board security agreement and attachment to the Bank of Nova Scotia.
Thank you. All in favor? That motion is also carried. We move now to 10.2, 2026 Supplementary Assessment Bylaw number 26-03. Welcome back, Liana.
Well, thank you. So I'm here tonight to ask for all 3 readings on our supplementary assessment bylaw. This is an annual bylaw that allows us to tax our property owners that have incomplete development throughout the year. And our appointed assessor that we appointed 2 years ago is Wild Rose Assessment Services. So with this, the assessor can assess improvements that have been added to land after December 31st condition date and collect taxes. We actually do not budget for the supplemental assessments. This is because this is a complete guesstimate, and we'd rather come to council with pure facts of what we have been provided by our assessors on what they are anticipating for our growth. So I'm here tonight to ask for all 3 readings, so if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the council? Councillor Brown.
Actually, just a statement. I want to make it for the public, for those people that didn't see last week. One of the questions that I'd asked was if someone completed a renovation, if it was prorated, and apparently it is. So that was one of the concerns I had. But that being said, I think that I know enough about it that I would support the motion, and I would love to make the motion if I could to move this forward.
And we would all love to hear you. Councillor Brown.
Okay, and thank you again. I move that council, wait a second, wrong one. I move that council give first reading to bylaw 2603, being the 2026 supplementary assessment bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? That motion is carried. Carry on.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 2603, being the 2026 supplementary assessment bylaw.
Thank you. And once again, now that we have a motion on the floor for second reading, is there discussion or comments? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried.
I think we're getting
Councillor
giddy.
Brown.
I move that council give unanimous consent to proceed with the third and final reading of bylaw 2603, being the 2026 supplementary assessment bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? That motion is carried. Councillor Lane, oh, you were just kidding. Councillor Brown.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 2603, being the 2026 supplementary assessment bylaw. Say that 5 times fast.
Thank you for
I just
that.
did.
All in favor? And that motion is carried. We move now to 10.3, 2026 Central Trunk Sewer Borrowing Bylaw number 26-02. Hello, Mr. Brawley.
Nice to see you again, Your Worship.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, keep throwing the finance ones at you here. There are 2 parts of the borrowing bylaw coming before you today. The first is to hold first reading of the Central Trunk Sewer borrowing bylaw and to instruct us in administration to advertise the bylaw under the terms of the MGA. We will then bring back the bylaw for second and third reading in April and report to council on any that we heard from residents during the advertising period. Part of that as well is the Central Trunk Sewer project is scheduled to take 3 years, and administration is recommending passing one bylaw for all budgeted borrowings in one swing, with separate draws taken on the loan each year to match the budget. As of today, the ACFA borrowing rate on a 25-year loan is 4.46% annually. The debt servicing on that 2026 portion of borrowing is about $156,000 annually, or just under a 1% tax impact, about 0.87%. Which would go up to a $330,000 annual debt servicing or 1.84% tax impact when all 3 draws are taken by the end of the project in 2028. So with this, council approved the town's 2026 capital budget on November 5th, 2025. The Central Trunk Sewer upgrade was approved for $3.965 million, and as I mentioned earlier, it's expected to extend into 27 and 28. For an additional $3.7 million between those 2 years. So part of this motion is today we are recommending council also formally approves those components of the budget to tie with this borrowing bylaw and give us in administration the ability to manage the entire scope of the 3-year project with a formally approved budget. I hope that makes sense. I'm of course here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Riley. Questions? Deputy Mayor Wiley?
I'm ready with a motion.
Thank you.
I move that council approve the 2027 and 28 capital budget for the Central Trunk Sewer Project. 2027 budget of $1,860,000 funded by the wastewater offsite levies, $275,000. Wastewater reserve, $372,000. Debt, $1,213,000. For 2028, budget of $1,815,000 funded by the wastewater offsite levies, $60,000. Wastewater reserves, $363,000. Debt, $1,392,000. And if I may speak on the motion, this is just good governance. With the recent crisis we're seeing with water in the city of Calgary and their infrastructure concerns, I don't need to be convinced of this, and I'm sure our Strathmore residents do not need to be convinced that we need to have a plan for our infrastructure. So all I have right now is just gratitude that our administration has a solid plan. We have been shared that plan. I'm very confident with that plan for taking care of our infrastructure and our expansion as we continue to grow and our current infrastructure ages. So thank you.
Thank you. Did you finish the last part? Maybe I blanked out for a second. Oh, it's two separate ones. Oh, I'm looking at the on-screen one as opposed to the skeleton minutes. Thank you for the motion. Any Skeletor minutes? Yes, thank you. He-Man. Right there, right there. All in favor? That motion is carried. Did you want to carry on again?
Sure.
Deputy Mayor Wiley?
That council give first reading to bylaw 2602, being the Central Trunk Sewer Borrowing Bylaw, and that council direct administration to advertise bylaw number 2602 in accordance with the Municipal Government Act prior to second reading.
Thank you. Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you, Your Worship. Riley, I just have a quick question just to help me kind of understand it. Your presentation was great. I just want to follow up. So the interest rate on a 25-year loan from the government of Alberta is 4.37%. Are we intending to take the entire debenture at once, or are we thinking of taking it in sections? And are we thinking interest rates might go up? Are we thinking we might get the best deal now? What does your crystal ball say?
Unfortunately, it's not very clear at the moment through the chair, but the intent is for the bylaw to cover the entire amount of the loan taken over 3 draws in 26, 27, and 28. That is dependent on the progress of construction, delays, things like that as well. This would also offer, if it was opportune to change the scope of the budget, we could bring an amendment back to council if we recommended at the time, saying it might make more sense to take out more debt in 2027, for example, kind of thing. So right now the scope is the proposals over the 3 years with separate draws. But yes, we could bring an amendment back if it was advantageous to do so.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Chisholm.
Banking question. I know we do our due diligence, or we wouldn't put these recommendations forward. Our credit partners, tell me a little bit about, in the background, our credit partners where we leverage credit to. Do they do any underwriting of the credit requests, and or is there any sort of commitment letters where there's conditions to the?
Most of our existing long-term debt is with the Alberta Capital Financing Authority, which is a government of Alberta subsidy. We do due diligence with potential commercial lenders as well. Typically, right now, the Alberta rate does beat what we can get in the commercial world. The debt itself tends to be secured by our ability to levy taxes in the future. There isn't too much, and that we're within our debt limits kind of thing. So I hope that answers your question in terms of like their due diligence on their side. There isn't too much more I can offer beyond that, though.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you, Riley. We move now to item 11, Councillor Information and Inquiries. Do we have any? Councillor Brown?
What time is it?
It's
Home time.
almost.
Okay, that's my question. Anyone
Oh,
want to?
good.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Then we move now to 11.1, questions between councillors and council statements. I have two statements, and I'll try to be brief because I know our staff needs to head home. The first one is our local fire department received an award at the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce. They received the Community Impact Award. So I was grateful and glad to step up and accept this for them, even though I have nothing to do with it. So I wanted to congratulate our fire department. They go way beyond just serving the call and helping to put out fires. They're vital members in the community. They give so much of their time for various events. I think of the breakfast they put on each year in the summer. All of those things make them an incredible part of the community, and I thank them, and this is for you, and I'll make sure it gets to Mark Pretzlaff. So that's the first one. Second thing I'd like to say is I shared this information with council, and I'd like to say that I'm pleased to share information about recent grants that have been approved through the Ministry of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women's Community Facility Enhancement Program. So Chantel de Jong obviously is our MLA, and her office sent me this, and I'm very, very pleased to announce and thank her for her efforts and thank the two groups that worked hard to get this. But the Strathmore Overnight Shelter Society has received $95,000 to support the expansion of the Strathmore Overnight Shelter. They do an amazing job. And again, I'd like to state that we don't have any kind of a serious encampment situation in town because of the incredible volunteers. And Pastor Karp, I thank you for all the work you've done. Former Councillor Peterson was very instrumental in bringing the overnight shelter here. I thank her as well and congratulate the overnight shelter for this grant. And the Lions Club of Strathmore, who does incredible job in the town of Strathmore in various efforts and supports so many things in town and so many people, including their Youth International Exchange Program and the Splash Park. So they have received $125,000 for upgrades to the Lions Splash Park. So those are my statements. Any others from councillors? Then we will carry on. 11.3, question and answer period. Do any councillors have any questions for administration? I have one through the CAO to Mark. I have a question from the CAO to Mark, and that is, I have a young man who's very interested in becoming a firefighter in town. He's a local guy who lives here. Does the fire department have a specified recruiting officer, and who can I steer him to?
Your worship, he can be directed just to Chief Sturgeon
Okay.
or Deputy Chief Eric Alexander.
Okay.
And they can direct him through the process.
Do they have the one intake and training session per year?
Not necessarily, depending on the individual, and
Okay.
if they come with qualifications. So
Thank
it's
you.
best just to contact them.
I'll get this information to him, so thank you very much. Any other questions or answers? No administrative inquiries and no notices of motion, so I will adjourn the meeting at 10:37. Good night.